So we have Morgan here, or Morgan Poulos Keating, our lead mechanical engineer at Delandre Andrews Engineering. We have the opportunity to ask her some questions about some of the mechanical engineering she does, and um, yeah, so we're gonna get into it. Morgan, I guess we'll start with what's one thing you wish that homeowners, architects, designers, and builders, knew about current mechanical engineering that they may not be aware of, and if you had a way to tell everyone, you could let them know.
I think there's a lot of things, but there's definitely still out here on the East End a little bit of an ingrained fear in heat pumps. And I think in like the 80s when the heat pumps were becoming cool or like more common, I don't think they were that great. So I think that there's still like some homeowners, some contractors who are very wary of them. And I don't think that there's reason to be anymore. One of the biggest questions I get when we spec heat pumps, which we do on 90% of our projects, is like, "Are you sure?" Um, and I'm very confident in heat pumps and the technology, the modern technology. Um, but I think a lot of people, have heard stories and they're worried. So I think if I could help anybody, just like with a really quick snippet, I would say don't be afraid of heat pumps. As like a matter of course, when we spec equipment, we make sure if there is an option for it, we're using low ambient kits on as an accessory to our condensers, which allows, kind of on average, um, cooling. You can cool your house when it's 50 degrees out. You can heat your house to like -10. So there's really no reason to be scared. I think that they used to not be that good. And also, in a lot of projects, in order to kind of combat that still ingrained fear, when we can, we will use supplemental heat, like in the form of hot water coils or maybe electric resistance coils. But there's really no reason to be scared anymore. I think that that's something that people should know.
Sure. And how does using heat pumps affect the HERS rating or the overall energy efficiency of the home?
Yeah. So, for the most part, heat pumps are like very high efficiency. Definitely, I would say higher than many furnaces, or at least on par. Um, but especially the mini split style heat pumps that we often use when we're space constrained, those are great. They help tremendously when we're trying to defeat HERS ratings and get good scores. Um, so yeah, the efficiencies are excellent for the most part, and they are electric pieces of equipment. So we're coming into a new year, and in the new year, we're having a law change in New York State, and it's going to require that homes are all electric. So, as well as heat pumps being good, and us wanting you to accept them, we're kind of going to be start to be forced to accept them, and that's something that's kind of important to factor in as well.
It sounds like you're referring to the New York All Electric Buildings Act. Could you tell me a little bit more about that and how that's going to affect some of our customers?
Yeah. So from what I know, this law was like proposed in like 2023 or something, and um, it's pretty controversial. So it was contested, and I think it went to like a federal court to be contested legally. The federal court upheld that though. So starting January 1 of 2026, New York State is passing this All Electric Buildings Act. And what that means is all new buildings under 7 stories for now are going to be subjected to having to be all electric. And that's new homes, which, is predominantly what we do. So we've been spending a lot of time educating clients about what's to come and or kind of pushing them to get building permits in, because by the letter of the law, you will be affected by this if you are building a new building and you don't have a building permit before January 1 of the coming year.
So let me make sure I'm understanding that. So it doesn't matter when I submit for permit documentation. I have to have a building permit in hand, otherwise I have to accommodate the this new law.
Technically, technically, yes. Um, you know, all of the villages and towns, obviously they adopt codes independently from each other, and they review plans independently of each other. This is a law, so I don't really understand how much wiggle room they have to adopt it or not. But I do understand that some of them are already taking stances about leniency when it comes to like, do you have a building permit in hand or did you submit your building permit before December 31? Like I said, I've been fielding a lot of questions about this, and we're trying to help clients project by project, and nothing's written in stone. So the best I can do is collect as much information I can from everybody else kind of out here who's working on this. What did you hear? Who did you talk to? But for the most part, I think that, the best way to be safe is to get your building permits in and try to get them in hand before December 31st. But I do know that there are some building departments who are going to be a little bit lenient as long as you've submitted before then.
Okay, good to know. If someone had more questions or wanted to dive a little deeper into the New York All Electric Buildings Act, is there a place that you'd recommend or something that they could do to get some more information?
Yeah, I mean, we wrote a blog post about it. I think anybody with questions about pretty much anything engineering wise should use our website as a resource because we have a lot of good blog posts in our resources tab, but that's the latest one. So I think that's a great resource, definitely as a starting point. I've sent that link around I send it around like 3 times a week to different people asking different questions. It's really good if you're an architect who wants to pass it to a homeowner. It's a really good link to have.
Great, thank you. So, as the lead mechanical engineer at DAE, obviously you do a lot of different mechanical engineering designs that encompasses the HERS rating, res checks, full-on mechanical design. And what are some things that, mechanical engineering on high-end residential might not be something that most people are familiar with or think you would need? What would be some considerations for someone considering having mechanical engineering done on their new house or the renovation, and what's the benefits of that, or what kind of considerations do you think they should be aware of from your perspective?
Yeah, I think a lot of people are used to, the non-East End building, or the non-East End home, which most of the time mechanical systems are just designed by the contractor. And because, that's been working and it's made sense, some people I think are kind of assuming that that works for all homes. But the homes that we're building out here, the ones especially that come through our office, are really more of commercial buildings in this type of construction and size. And they're like commercial buildings with the finest finishes that you can have. So, if it makes sense to do a mechanical design for a commercial building, it would make even more sense to do it for a commercial size home, especially if you're trying to avoid like the dreaded soffits and drop soffits and other ugly architectural features that sometimes ducts require. Yeah, I think that especially for us, because our buildings are designed so specifically in terms of structure, especially when there's steel involved, it's super beneficial to have a plan in place for where you're running duct and how. It does change, throughout construction, but that initial design is really like the blueprint that the rest of the project follows. It ensures that there's some plan in place.
And is there, I think we keep going back and forth. We're talking between mechanical and MEP, and what is, you just mind clarifying that distinction for people that may not be familiar with it?
Yeah, so technically, mechanical, when we talk about it, refers to heating and cooling. Heating, cooling, exhaust, electricals, obviously, electrical. And plumbing is hot, cold water, and septic lines as they pertain to being inside of your house. We do, we do design documents for all 3 of those disciplines and construction documents for all 3 of those disciplines. And we also have, we call it a task, but at the start of projects and what we talk about as SD or schematic design, we have a task that encompasses all 3 of them and allows us to sit with homeowners and architects and look at the project holistically so that we can talk about M, E, and P and a bunch of other things, to be honest, right at the start of the project. And it's a little overwhelming, I think, for homeowners at that point. But usually by the end of the call, they're really thankful because they've been kind of given a bunch of things to think about and a starting point for making a plan for how to move forward. So we love doing our MEP zeros, we call them, and we've gotten great feedback from homeowners, especially.
So maybe just talk to me through that process. What does that look like? If I'm a homeowner, I come to you and I say, okay, I heard about this MEP zero. I'm really confused. I got somebody telling me to use heat pumps. They tell me, I have the option to use all gas still. What does that MEP zero look like from the client's perspective, and
Yeah.
what will they get, and what do they walk away with at the end of it?
The end result or the deliverable is a report. But it's usually 1 or 2 phone calls with the owner and architect and us. And the phone calls, they're usually kind of lengthy because there's a lot to talk about. But those phone calls, we'll talk to them about options. Some homeowners have very specific things that they want, whether that be because they've built other homes and they have systems in them that they hate and they don't want them, or they have systems that they love and they do. And some people just don't know where to start. So usually we'll present options for everything, and we'll give our opinions based on other desires of the client about what might work best for them. And we talk through a lot. We talk through what kind of considerations each of those options might be for the look of the house, the landscape, cost at the best that we can. And usually by the end of the second call, we're able to put together a multi-page report. And it's nice because it ends up being kind of a binder for the homeowner and the architect that lays everything out with pictures and diagrams. And it's a reference for them to go back to as they're continuing their design and even into construction. What did we choose and why did we choose it? Because oftentimes you might want to change something that seems like changing that one thing is the only change that will happen, but there's a waterfall effect. So they're able to go back and remember, why did we choose this? And what was the purpose?
Can you give me an example, maybe just to, so if people aren't familiar, what kind of consideration or trade-offs would you use in that report as an example of something that
Yeah.
you're going to help provide that clarity for?
One of our biggest kind of discussions in those is renewables. A lot of the homes out here need HERS ratings or ERI ratings, and a lot of the homes require a renewable to pass. So we do a lot of education about solar, which is, I think, a little bit more common and known to people. But then we also do a lot of conversation about geothermal, which is a renewable and is something that helps pass energy ratings. A lot of people don't really know what it is. I think if you do kind of know what it is, you think that it's like a loop that goes so far into the Earth's crust that it brings up hot water, which happens in Iceland, but that's not how our geothermal systems work here. So we get to talk to clients about that as an example, as options. And, along with that, we talk about cost. The two systems are pretty different in price, especially upfront price. And we talk about, what it also means for their landscape or the, exterior of their home, which is something I don't think that they think about. There's a lot of people who know, I hate solar panels, they're ugly, but there's not a lot of people who know that geothermal systems require no outside components. Geothermal systems, the condenser part of the system lives in your basement. It's an indoor element. So some people, after learning that, and having no idea prior, are much more interested in geothermal because they don't have to worry about plantings or kind of hiding an ugly farm of condensers for their HVAC.
That's all very informative. As far as, we're just wrapping up here, but is there anything else that you wish for the owners, architects, builders, people that are coming to us to work with knew about mechanical engineering, or anything that you want to, information you want to share with them, or give them to think about as we wrap up here?
Yeah, I just think having a plan in place at the start of your project is it becomes super valuable and becomes more valuable as the project moves into reality and you are standing in a framed home and you're looking at steel and you're wondering, oh man, I hope that we like had a plan to get a duct through that. Um, you know, like I said before, the dreaded soffit. That's just kind of like one element or something that's kind of indicative to me when I walk in a home of a improperly planned HVAC system. They happen. It's a thing that happens, but we try our best to um, to mitigate those kinds of like oopsies or after the fact kind of architectural changes. So getting a plan, it doesn't mean that, your builder no longer has any autonomy. We work really well with a lot of the HVAC subs out here, and we know that things change by the time, design is complete and you're standing in a framed home. But that plan is usually a very, very valuable thing that affords a lot of confidence to the architect and a lot of confidence to the homeowner too.
Great. Thank you, Morgan. Appreciate it.
Cool. Thanks, Paul.